Great. So thank you for joining, morning or afternoon or evening, wherever you are. It's great to see you. And yeah, so we want to go through a couple of things today and then hopefully have a really good discussion as well. So I will just share my screen and then have a look on what we plan to discuss today. So I will give a very quick recap on the project and basically the philosophy behind. Very quick because we discussed it earlier, just to have a recap and also maybe for the people that are here the first time. Then Anastasia will show the current status of the open source app, where we are, what we basically just deployed today, a small update as well. Ethan will dive into one of the meetings we had, I think around 4 weeks ago, about like the kind of features that we feel are important, the visual design that we currently have, and get some feedback there. Then a very quick summary of the other small meeting we had with the community on what kind of mobile technology we want to use. Then back to Nastia on like the kind of mono repo, the documentation, the kind of like onboarding for the community if somebody wants to contribute code, where we are here. And then I will go back with like what's the next steps, what elements we have on the roadmap, and then have a lot of Q&A. Feel free to also put your questions in the chat, and then we either address them within the presentation or at the end. Great. So what is this all about? It's basically part of this open source initiative, part of what we call the Clean Air Advocates program, where we feel like we need to do more to actually basically motivate behavior change on the ground through people towards like cleaner air, maybe lower carbon emissions, and by creating awareness on air pollution is the first step. So if I go on the next one here, to really break this down, how to get this, to make a truly open source air quality map, which is a very intuitive map that we also want to localize into many languages. We just had discussions actually last week with a city in our city government, basically in Pakistan, that are interested to have it in Urdu. We have this big project in Laos, which is obviously Lao language, but then also obviously the popular ones like Spanish for South America, for example, and Portuguese. And really have, like a very powerful, a very also like accessible, not only in terms of like making it easy to use, but also something, let's say, very polished that people like to use, and basically transmits or makes air quality data more tangible. I think we will see the first screenshots then when Ethan presents this. So I mentioned a couple of these key features already. I think what's also really important is like to have accurate data, that we somehow can verify the data that we present and be reasonably sure it's correct. And also, I think the last point is really important, that we want to highlight the community organizations on the ground that actually do, in my opinion, the lion's share often of clean air activities that work in their city or in their country, with the legislators or with just convincing people maybe, not to burn their trash, what's happening here in Thailand very often, or like on policy level with politicians, maybe on, introducing low emission zones and so on. So I think the communities on the ground are really a key aspect of the program, and I think that will also appear in a second. Which is an example here, actually. So on the second step, like the first step, we want to really highlight the communities. This is something we will show already in the screenshots. And then the second step is, can we actually use the application to connect community members in a more effective way, or help these communities like managing actually their clean air project. It can start with as simple as having a tool to, like disseminate information, but then also things like maybe even have like kind of ways to donate to these community groups, for example, and support them also through financial means, and share, I think, successes is also very important here, that community members can also really basically talk on like what steps or what worked for them, or what events worked, or certain community goals they want to reach as them together, basically. Great. You can see it's a little bit late, so I'm kind of probably my worst presentation I did for a long time, but never mind. So I'm quite happy because I can give over to Anastasia to talk a little bit on her on the current state of the applications. I stop sharing here, and then Anastasia, you can take over here.
Hi everyone. Can you see my screen now? Yeah. Super. Yeah, happy to meet you all today. So I will provide a little information on the state basically we're at right now. And yeah, here in the presentation, I've collected some key points of the progress that we've made and some updates and the functionality, but I think it can be maybe even more interesting if we see it all. So yeah, this is our map, as I am told, just fresh and new, released today, the latest version. So what we have here from updates is basically we've added CO2 meanwhile, and we already have like all three air quality measurements that we have on our production map. So, and also a lot of effort were put into the URL storage and persistence, and also backwards compatibility to the current map. So basically right now, it's already pretty much ready. If we use the existing system, it works and detects the location and zoom and basically the whole configuration set up for the map. Also, we put some effort into providing some details, like important details on the contributors, on the providers, and also the license you can see here. So which is a significant part of the concept that we have here. Also, you can see some updates on charts, but pretty much it's everything that you're already familiar with in our production map. And the new map is getting closer and closer to the existing production map functionality. Yeah, so also the legend is here, and actually another one is also on its way to provide some more information and details on the markers itself, because this is pretty much new compared to the map that we have in production, because we didn't have any clusters before. And to provide some clarification, we will add another legend here as well. Yeah, I would say these are the most important updates from my side on the map state.
Thank you, Nastya. Let me go back to Nastya. I just see there's a question from Timia. You want to address that now?
Oh, yeah, I didn't have a chance to read. Just a second. Oh, yeah, actually, that's a good point. So basically, right now we use the EPA, US AQA, EPA recommendations and the scale, but maybe we can provide different, and I think it will give us a better understanding and nice way to compare information. So yeah, that's a good point. Thank you. I will just quickly take a note on that.
Okay, and then one more coming. Can we add respective country standards on plot? I'm not sure, Ethan, are you gonna talking on that?
Only briefly, but I think the initial plan was to go with something, yeah, like the US EPA standard or the WHO standard, and then over time, added more.
Okay, great. So I go back to the presentation and we continue there and keep on putting questions in the chat. I think it's great. And then as soon as we see them, we will have it. Yeah, so actually over to Ethan. If you can just share your screen and then you go ahead.
1 second. Cool. So yeah, I will give a bit of an update on a meeting that we had, I think about a month ago now, in which we delved into the UI and the UX and also had a bit of a look at the feature set that we want to be included in the initial release of the app. So as I'm sure many of you are already aware, here was the first wireframe that I created a few months ago. If you want to have a look at that in more detail, it's on both the Discord and also on the GitHub discussion. So I won't discuss that again, but yeah, if you do want to take a deeper look at that, please feel free to, and also to leave comments there. However, based on the discussion that we had surrounding this initial wireframe and also the mobile counterpart, it was concluded that it's probably it could be a bit overwhelming for many users. And the consensus was that there should probably be different versions of the app targeted at different knowledge levels and also different people who want to use the app. Because again, we want to make this as accessible as possible to everybody. So we want to show the pertinent information and hopefully understandable information to each and every user of the app. So we thought about having kind of different, let's say, levels of the application. At the moment, it's not completely defined. However, we were thinking of having something like a basic level, an intermediate level, and then more of an advanced level. And at the most basic level, oh, sorry, I should go back one step first. So when the user opens the app, we are going to also introduce an onboarding process, which I will introduce in a few slides' time. But basically, based on what users enter in that onboarding guide, that will at least initially dictate the app and what information is shown to them. And this can be changed at any time. So yes, initially, we thought to have the PM concentrations or the AQI shown. This will be user adjustable depending on their preference of metric. And then we'll also have basic notifications. So since this is at the basic level, the notifications, I guess, will initially be predefined by us because not everybody might know exactly at what threshold they want to get a notification at. So that's something that will come in at other levels. We also want to have the weather data, cigarette equivalents, which is something that we looked a bit more into, but it seemed to be very popular among the community. And I think it's just a very relatable statistic. So we want to include that. We will also show the historical data. In this form, it will only be very simple, maybe color-coded, again, because we don't want this version to be too complex. And then we will also have some simple health advice that can be taken to reduce exposure. So following on from that, we will have the currently placeholder name, which will be the intermediate level, which will have everything that I just described, but it will also have a few more details. So for example, it will show all of the pollutants, at least for monitors that measure all of the pollutants. So it will also show things like NO2 and ozone, and it will show all of those individual pollutants and their measurements. We will also add the location list. So that would be like this map over here that you can see nearby monitors and also this bottom section. So this could allow you to identify if the pollution is background pollution or if it's localized. It could even perhaps identify faulty monitors if something is reading very differently to other nearby monitors. We will also have more functionality on the historical data. So instead of just having color-coded, like a color-coded calendar, we might also show numbers and also have adjustable periods that can be displayed. On top of this, we will add more steps to reduce exposure and also provide extra sources. So if people want to do more reading on how they can reduce their exposure to pollution, they can delve into these extra resources and hopefully educate themselves a lot more. One other metric that we wanted to add to the screen was also to describe how many times the pollutant is currently exceeding WHO guidelines. I guess this could also be adjusted to other guidelines once they're added, but that was at least the initial idea. And then, yeah, finally, we wanted to add kind of like an advanced interface or an admin interface. So this would be more targeted towards community groups or NGOs, and it would have significantly more advanced features like downloadable reports, and we might even allow a customizable app logo. So like I said, this is not set in stone at the moment, and we're actually discussing kind of these features and where they should be categorized on the Discord. So if you do have any feedback, please feel free to put that there. Cool. So as I mentioned, at least to partially sort users into like what kind of experience they want to have, and also perhaps to, in the future, provide more tailored insights, we will have a brief onboarding process. At the moment, at least in the kind of draft that we have at the moment, this onboarding process will open the first time the user opens the app, and it will ask them a couple of questions. So basically, if they're in an at-risk group, so if somebody has like a cardiovascular disease or condition, or if they have asthma, we might want to provide them different health advice and at different levels of pollution. We also would ask how old the user is, although this could potentially be merged into the at-risk group. How the user wants to see their data. So this would loop back to those kind of levels that I just mentioned. And here the user could also define if they prefer to see AQI or PM 2.5 in micrograms per cubic meter. And in the future, as we add other country standards, then those could also be added here. So yeah, as I mentioned, these are not currently set in stone. And also we want to allow users flexibility. So if a user selects something, say they want to see the AQI when they're onboarding, of course, this is something that can be adjusted later on. They're not stuck seeing the AQI forever. One other idea that we had was to try and kind of educate the user and perhaps push them towards like a more advanced experience over time. So say, for example, if somebody's been using the app for 2 or 3 months, maybe we could have a prompt show up that would invite them to see other pollutants instead of just PM 2.5. So this is also definitely something that's open to discussion, but our idea was to kind of try and educate users of the app and hopefully inform them, and over time, give them more advice and how they can reduce their exposure. So yeah, that brings me to my final point to talk about today. Sid, our designer, has come up with these fantastic mock-ups, both for the map application that Anastasia just showed, and also for, if I go here, for the initial mock-up of kind of like the, I guess, home screen that I showed earlier. So you can see here that he's done custom artwork, both for the icons, which I believe we've showed off before, and also for the backgrounds. And he's basically gone through and vastly improved on my wireframe and made it look a lot better. So I think it's probably best if we kind of post these in Discord and also on GitHub later on, or maybe tomorrow. And then we would invite discussion from everybody to give their feedback on not just on these new designs, but also on everything I've discussed today. So yeah, that concludes everything from me. So back to you, Ahim.
Ethan, not yet. There are 2 questions for you from Gary Witt. Can we switch between levels in real time? You have any thoughts on that?
Yes, so I'm assuming you mean between like beginner, intermediate, advanced, right? If that's the case, yeah, the idea is to allow users to change at any point. Like I said, we don't want to lock people into any of the levels. It's just to try and tailor the experience to make sure that everybody can actually get the best from the app and hopefully learn from it and take away information that's useful to them.
Thanks. And then another question from Timia Kiss. Can we make sure the WHO is on the initial list of selected table scales? I think that is the strictest scale out there. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think you are right. But Ethan, yeah, maybe
Yes.
there's something there.
Yes, I believe at the moment that is probably what we will go out with initially. It's almost certain that that will be there and that will be at launch. So yeah, no problem there.
Great. Yeah, so then I continue here. So the second smaller meeting we had was about the mobile stack. So basically, should we go through a cross-platform app that we can generate from one code base, or have like native applications for like Android and iOS? And I think the conclusion of that meeting was that yes, native apps are obviously better, more performant. On the other hand, we actually don't have the resources right now. So at AirGradient, we have this only partially, and that it maybe makes sense to, as important as the applications are, I think that we had a big agreement to first say, okay, let's just get the basics right on the web application, including the mobile views of the web app. This could easily also be a PWA if you want to do this. And then once we have this one more established, like also know, okay, these are the core features. This is maybe the core design language, and UI flow and so on. Once we have this established, then go into native applications. And maybe until then, we have some more resources available. Hopefully, maybe some community members. I know from the initial survey we made like 2 or 3 months ago that we have a couple of Swift and Kotlin developers. So maybe some people can step forward and we work together on implementing this. But at the moment, our focus is basically getting the first version ready, and we talk about the overall roadmap at the end of the presentation in a little bit more detail. Let me see if there's any question for me. No? Okay. Good. Then we go to Nastya again for the mono rep and documentation.
Yeah, so this is the part I actually like most, and I'm very happy to talk about it because pretty much everything that I will now describe was really community driven. Basically, at some point, we got quite a lot of comments on the technical structure of our project at that point. So these are some technical details, but initially the whole project consisted of 2 separate projects for the backend and front end. And it was actually the community who insisted to bring it into one monorepo. And what is, I think, even cooler, it was like community who helped us and pretty much did the hard job for us. And I would really love to say big thank you to Timia. She actually did this magic. And thanks to her, we have the monorepo working. Luckily, everything is super great. So yeah, and now it's just one project and the developer experience is much smoother, which is also very important, especially if we talk about open source. Yeah, so then also during one of productive discussions with Timmy as well, so it has become clearer to us that maybe we need some better communication with developers and some more transparency basically about the workflows that we have. So, and this brought us to the idea of setting up a GitHub project. So you can see it here. So this is a sort of Jira for workflow tracking that we set up in the GitHub, and it's linked to our project. Really convenient, easy to track, no matter if you want to pick up an issue and collaborate, or if you're waiting for some other issues to be done and just want to see the progress. So basically, it's pretty simple and intuitive here, standard columns for the progress stages, and also what we also added a sort of priority levels. We only have 3 for now, yeah, and of course you can see the person responsible for the issue at the moment. Yes, what is also good is that we are using this tool, the GitHub project tool, to show what we are working on internally, not only in terms of code, but for example, the designs. For example, you can see here, I also created an issue on it and keep it updated, you know, like first, just to mention that we were working on this. And just recently, I added the latest updates on the designs and actually even commented on my own issue. So just to launch some communication. Yeah, so this is our GitHub project. And just let me see what we have here. Yeah, so these are the main updates. Also, one nice thing that I wanted to mention in the updated README. So I left a bit of comments here for people who would like to contribute, basically. Due to some restrictions, it's not really possible, you know, to jump in and to collaborate like a collaborator. So first, if you want to participate, you would still need to go the forking way, yeah, to fork and then create PRs. But generally, if you are really interested in collaborating, we are always happy to add you to the repository, so to make the developer experience smoother and more pleasant. Yeah, and also you can see some information here on basically the project management. So I can maybe show it here. It was also me talking to myself here as well, just to check if everything works smoothly and nice. So because actually it's only from our side that we can manage the project. I mean, move tickets, issues from column to column, update the status, update the assignees, yes. And basically the most straightforward way we could come up with is just you can tag us here in the comments or in the issues itself, because they're linked. And we'll be always happy to assist you in any way with updating the issues, the statuses, the priorities, pretty much everything. Yeah, so this is pretty much it. Just let me check if I have any questions. So Gary Weed is asking, can we, oh, sorry, no, that was already answered. Okay, no questions to me.
Yeah, thank you, Anastasia. I put the link to the project into the chat. So I think the bottom line was really to make it, you know, as easy as possible for people to start contributing, and then also to populate basically already some, you know, issues that we need to work on, so that people can also easily see like what needs to be done, and hopefully then, you know, feeling like easy to contribute or to give feedback, for example, into like thing we posted today, or latest tomorrow, we put these design examples up there that our designer came up. And then this is really also the issues, the board that we use internally for that project. So we don't have a separate like private board or anything like this. So this is really the same thing that we from AirGradient for that open source project will use to commit our code and discuss everything. And just to make it, more like not more, but very, very transparent on what's going on there. So yeah, please have a look on the GitHub on the project. Reach out if you have any questions, and hopefully become active. So last chapter before we start into a more open discussion, I want to talk a little bit on the roadmap we have in mind, and that's a little bit of a tricky part because we want this to be a really community-driven project. So it's not like that we at AirGradient say, okay, we have a certain budget and then we hire this amount of people and this is like our plan to implement it. That's one thing on the resource side, but also on the feature side, we really need to understand what do the communities need, because they are basically kind of our customers, and communities not only the local organizations on the ground that fight for clean air, but basically everybody that wants to have better air quality data in their hand on their smartphone, and to really understand what are their needs. But what we came up in a very kind of simplified way is okay to set ourselves two targets for the summer. One is until like in around a month. We want to really replace that old code base, something Anastasia mentioned in the beginning of this presentation, with this new open source application that gives us a much better code base for future development, and then just kind of get rid of all the old stuff, just to leave that behind us. And then you already saw the stylings, the idea for, I think, a pretty nice UI, and we want to have like the first things of this implemented until the end of August. And then I think it's getting really interesting. So, oh, maybe I should mention also for the first release of the production map, basically this until mid-July, we will only show AirGradient monitors first, which the current map only shows AirGradient monitors. And the reason is that there's quite a lot of work we need to do on the OpenAQ data to make sure it's correct and validated. So OpenAQ primarily collects data from many sources, and they don't do much, if any, kind of validations or error checkings on their side. So things like, sometimes monitors send -1 if they are offline. At the moment, this actually pops up on our prototype map. And also things like if we need certain calibrations that we should apply to certain instruments coming from OpenAQ. So this could be something that's could become quite intensive, or stage process. Some of these validations will be simple, some will take a lot more work and could become quite tricky potentially. Another thing we want to implement, which was also often requested by the community, is basically layers on the map for wind, for heat, for fire hotspots. I think this gives, especially like, for example, fire and wind, I know from Thailand here, when we have these wildfires, it gives you a really good prediction on where the smoke is traveling to. Local community features, we mentioned that early on, where we just enable the communities that do the groundwork with the monitors very often, just give them a platform to basically advertise for their cause. Then I think what will be really interesting also from a search engine perspective, if we have dedicated URLs for countries or cities, and also be able to make these top lists that I think even already showed in some of the mock-ups, With UNICEF, we have a really interesting project. Their data scientists work on implementing machine learning models, which seem to work quite well to have a higher spatial resolution between monitors. And their model is also open source and apparently doesn't need too much of CPU power to run. So this is something we are interested to work in. We are waiting for them to publish that model on their GitHub. And then obviously the native mobile application that we mentioned and notification is obviously also a very important feature that we want to add. Great. So Q&A. Let me just stop the sharing and then see. Yeah, so I want to really open this up to the community. If you have any feedback or any questions to any of the sections we presented. In the meantime, until you have your question in the chat or out there, I want to also mention like the last couple of weeks in May and June, we actually had a big conference in Bangkok where the whole team or nearly the whole team came to Thailand. So we were pretty busy after that. We had a company event. And then like a lot of people traveled back home, which sometimes was quite a stretch. So we haven't been as productive as normal, I would say, in the last 4 weeks. And I think that will change a little bit. On the other hand, we do have a lot of ongoing work as well. So, and I would like to see this really a community-driven project. So if there are people that want to contribute, then yeah, please come forward. Look at the GitHub repository, and you can, yeah, like basically start working on something. This would be great. Like for example, Timia, who did a lot of work on the mono repo, which was great to see, and we had a few other contributions as well. So, are there any questions? Okay, Timia, great. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Hi. Nice to see you all, and thank you for all the kind words. That really felt very nice, and I'm glad that I could be useful. I have a non-tech related question about the first part, Achim, you were talking about building the community. Because the thing is that I'm starting to reach out to Barcelona City Council and building some new connections. And I happen to have gotten to know the person who is going to be the head of all kinds of innovation in the city. And just this week, we had an alert going out about air quality. So it was very timely, even though it wasn't on purpose, but it happened at the same time that I was really reaching out to this person because of something else. And then I was asking who to reach out to, and he sent me like a whole organizational board, and he's very encouraging to reach out to talk to them. All this to say is that first PowerPoint screen you showed, do we have already somewhere a list of points that you, like a list of steps you already take with local governments, or who you want to work with? How do you normally work with them? I know we don't have that many forest fires and stuff, but believe me, the city air is also not too nice around here. So if you could set a good example in an even more, mainstream and touristy and bigger cities to help them to go the right way too. So what do you say to that?
Yeah, so we have a couple of them, and we often actually feature them on our blog. What comes to my mind is, for example, in actually 2 organizations in South America that we work with at the moment, which are not that much impacted by wildfires, I believe. One in Ecuador, one in Honduras. The Honduras one is a very YAF-driven organization called Sustenta Honduras that are setting up monitors all across the country. Very inspiring, very powerful young people, also looking into the effects from climate change. And in Ecuador, it's actually I'm not good in Spanish, but something like Moms and Dads Against Pollution or something like this. And
That's nice.
and they are like really, actually there was the, I can maybe quickly show this. Yeah, this was actually this organization here. Yeah, Madres y Padres por Aire Limpio. I'm not good in Spanish, but so you can see here like super engaged, super motivated. And they are in Ecuador, and they are setting up monitors. Actually, these are our monitors. We donated to them a network, and just out of concern for their children on more general air pollution levels. I don't think they have that much of wildfires in that region, but they have like episodes of bad air, which maybe also, you know, what happened to Barcelona. Then there are a couple of other organizations we work with. Just the other day we had a call with it's called the Urban Unit in Pakistan, which are basically from a government side, like helping cities in, you know, something like waste and air quality management and other things. And they're actually currently deploying around 160 monitors across a couple of cities in Pakistan. They have, I mean, they have more potentially wildfires sometimes, or this agricultural burning. And they are also quite interested to know a little bit more on actually on this application, because in the end, I think what like kind of connects all these organizations is the need to effectively communicate the air quality information. And I think that's where often we still fail, and I include AirGradient in that too, like that like we have a lot of data and we deploy these monitors, and then like how do we actually really maximize the impact with that data? And I think that's something that we actually want to that's the topic we want to address with that application. And that's a lot of things like also, like for example, this project we are running in Laos at the moment with UNICEF. I believe so even the information is now on our website. I'm not sure how many people in Laos, what's the percentage of people speaking English. You know, it's as simple as that. And the second step is then, even if we localize it into local language on our website, are they actually knowing where to go? Do they use other avenues on communication? So a lot of people in the global south, they actually like basically running their whole life through some smartphone application that doesn't necessarily have to be the web browser. Could be things like WeChat in China, or some other platforms that we might want to actually integrate then at some point the air quality information, just to much more effectively reach them. So it's I think that the key point is, and hopefully once we have the first version out there, that we can actually get much more communities joining these discussions here and just sharing with us like, okay, how exactly they use. And that's all across the world. I mean, that's what we see as a target. So from, very, very small, very poor countries to, the rich ones. And because I think all share that problem with with bad air in whatever matter. Hope that
Okay.
answers your question a little bit, Timia.
Yes, I think you answered my question, because I was looking for like kind of a template if we already have to give, like after the UK project, what you did in the school, or like other projects that I don't even know of, if we have like an outline that I could tell them that, okay, this is normally the points along we are thinking, and what are you thinking? So this is what I was just, if you have like some summary or something like that.
I think I can maybe put something together and send to you, or we have a separate chat. Great.
Thank you.
Okay, I see a question from Tai. A question for the app onboarding, indicating users' age, etc. I wonder if there's a possibility that a user might want to use the app to monitor air quality in order to take care of other family members, not just his or her own health. Can we have a feature like allowing the user to create multiple profiles of people they're looking after? they want to have independently customized notification. Good point. I maybe Ethan, you want to say something
Sure.
about that?
Yeah, so this was something we had considered because, for example, parents with young children too young to have their own, smartphone or computer and be looking at the app, might still want to see the air quality. And I think this is something that we should implement. I think initially probably having multiple profiles is perhaps too complex, but we could ask in the onboarding process if somebody is trying to look out for their family as well with the information on the app, if they can select, say, the most at-risk person in their family and then show them that information. But yeah, I think multiple profiles further down the line would be a great idea. But for now, perhaps we can find an easier way to do that with the initial product.
Great. Are there any more questions? Maybe to bridge the time a little bit. So you can also expect more communication from us in the coming weeks now, because I think we will make more progress now on the application. I think there will also be more interesting things to discuss, like the visual layout, for example, that we showed there. So that's where we are at the moment. Not sure any last minute comments or questions. If not, then I would say thank you to obviously the team here from our side, as well as everybody who participated. And we will also put the video up again and put it on our website. By the way, there's a dedicated website for that project where we have already the previous 3 meetings as recordings. So in case you want to dive into this, you can watch that. We have the information on GitHub, which is our central communication platform. Great. So many thanks for coming, and have a great day ahead or a nice evening.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Take care.
everyone.
Bye-bye.